One of the earliest comics I read was Fantomas, a Mexican comic, or Historieta, as it's referred to in Mexico and Latin America. Fantomas continues to enchant me throughout all these years. And who is Fantomas? He is a mixture of Bruce Wayne and Sherlock Holmes. He's a great detective. And he's also a man of deep mystery, like the Count of Monte Cristo, the Phantom, Diabolik, and Doc Savage. But he does have also that brush of Lord Byron and the Russian poet Pushkin and the American Aaron Burr. But he's also a bit of a Casanova. He loves women, and women love him. And if you've seen the movies To Catch a Thief and Notorious, both by Alfred Hitchcock, and starring Cary Grant, he's got a little bit of Cary Grant in him. Notorious being one of my favorite movies by Hitchcock, if not the favorite. There's very little humor in that film by Grant. Certainly no humor when he makes love to Ingrid Bergman. But of course, when you make love to Bergman, there cannot be any humor. Although Fantomas is a Mexican comic book, it takes place in Paris, France. That's where Fantomas is based. He is able to secure his fortune through theft. He steals precious jewels from very rich people. He has nothing against wealth, but he does steal from those who have acquired it through ill means. In that sense, he's also a little bit of the Old Testament. He's an avenging angel. He's assisted by a professor, a scientific genius who helps him with the technology that he uses, including at one point a time machine, where Fantomas travels thousands of years into the future. And he has 12 assistants, and they're all women, and each one is named after the zodiac. They are all in love with him, but he, being the professional, keeps it professional. But he does love women. And he knows many, including celebrities, like even film celebrities, like Ursula Andress from the James Bond film, Edwige Fenech, the European actress, and Jacqueline Smith, my favorite Charlie's Angel. He never takes off his mask, not even when he makes love to them. Though he never reveals himself to them, but they reveal something about themselves to him. One thing about the comic, there's always something culturally relevant in each one of those comics. There were over 600 of these, but there was always something relevant in each one. It's not unusual to find Einstein or Sigmund Freud or Karl Marx or Picasso or the Mexican poet Octavio Paz, the Argentinian Julio Cortázar, the American writer Susan Sontag, or the great filmmaker Charlie Chaplin make appearances in the comic book. That was purposeful. There was always had something to be, something culturally relevant had to appear in the comic for its readers, who tended to be working class kids like myself at that time. But Fantomas himself represents something rather important in the comics. There's a conflict between civilization and barbarism. A barbarism from within liberal democracies, which are always in danger of falling into totalitarianism. In the comic, it's always the intellectuals, the thinkers, the artists, the um, who are always the targets of the villains or the government or the fascist regimes that appear in the comic, which is a constant theme in the books. And enter Fantomas to be the shield between this, to basically be the barrier from the barbarians, be the one at the gate from preventing the barbarians from getting in. Which brings me to this series of videos. This is a preview video for the other three will just be the covers of the books, because I've been able to acquire over 200 Fantomas books. I was able to do so last week in a leap of faith. And this is just some of the books that I got. As you can see here, these are smaller size. And that's what happened. These are earlier. These are from the early 70s. But from the late 70s, the comic, smaller size. These are the Theri Águila, and these are the Avestruz. Now, as you can see from the comics, they don't have numbers on them. The numbers are in the interior. And this storyline here, which you may have noticed, has a swastika on it, is a lengthy story, which does not conclude with these issues. The others I will show you in the subsequent videos. But the stories here are the son of Hitler. The story takes place in 1977 or 78, 33 years after the death of Hitler. And what the story's about is that fascism has appeared in Western democracies again, in Europe and in the US. And it's appeared in the form of Nazism. What has happened is that subliminally, through television, people are turning against democratic values or liberal values. And not all are acceptable to it. Only some people are. But it's enough to turn governments against themselves. And Fantomas quickly deciphers that there's something subliminal going on television. But he does not know who is behind this. And I've only read the first two books, and each comic is about 32 pages. But there's not really text wasted in the comics. That's one of the things that is notable about Fantomas. They don't waste space. The day before Hitler committed suicide in the Fantomas comics, his lover had a child. Eva Braun? No, not Eva Braun. He had a lover from Uruguay, a woman who was on vacation in Hamburg years earlier, on her honeymoon. The British bombed Hamburg. Her husband was killed. She was injured, and she was found by Adolf Hitler and his army. But he falls instantly in love with her. He keeps it secret from among most of his circle except for Göring and Himmler and Bormann, his personal assistant. She becomes pregnant with his child. And the day before he commits suicide, when the Soviets have invaded Berlin, he tells Bormann, his personal secretary, to take the child and his wife and take them to South America. And he has a plan. The Third Reich may be over, but the Fourth Reich will return one day. Will come back. And Bormann, his personal assistant, does just that. And there's a lot of history in the book. In those just first two books that I read, there's quotes from Mein Kampf, and it's noted in the comic where they got their sources from. And other things that Hitler said, and those in his circle did. So Bormann raises the child with the help of a woman, which is another part of the story here. And the child is to come back 33 years later. Why 33 years later, according to Hitler's plan? Because he wants that to coincide with the age of Christ, which Fantomas deciphers early on, when Hitler appears, the son of Hitler, who thinks himself as the next Messiah, who's going to bring 1,000 years of glory for the Fourth Reich. Thank you for viewing, and happy reading.